Namo Guru Bazadre Trelokya Natarana Shri Mula Guru Mahamudra Sindhi Palahum Om Namo Guru Bazadre Trelokya Natarana Shri Mula Guru Mahamudra Siddhi Palahum Om Namo Guru Benzadri Trelokya Natarana Shri Mula Guru Mahamudra Siddhi Palahum. So now let's look at chapter 6, statement 18. So people claim that when one has reached realization, one no longer needs the path of means and so forth. Then Kyopa's statement is, for the possessor of realization, the path of means and so forth is all the more necessary. So this statement is more generally, this statement is in response to that idea that once you have some realization, then you don't need the different methods to help you progress more to deeper realization or more profound realization. So it's saying, no, especially if you have realization, then these methods, the path of means, the path of means has a more specific reference as well, and we'll look at that. But more generally, here you can say the different methods, he says, and so forth, and the other, they are all remains relevant. So the main point here is don't be so quick to dismiss the practices and say, oh, all you need is realization. So kind of related to what I was talking about earlier. Yes, the early masters use very simple, very direct, very unelaborate instructions and practices. We don't need all these later things, all these complicated things. That is one extreme, The other extreme is to chase all these complicated things, You're so busy attending all these, drupchens and retreats. You're signing up, one after another, going to one after another. But then you forgot, the essence also doesn't work. Yeah. So here is addressing more generally that idea that, oh, I just meditate. I have realization. I've seen nature of mind and I don't need anything else. In fact, if you think like that, probably then, you have not really had any real, true realization. It's just a mental concept that you're clinging on to. Now let's look at Chodra's commentary. This is because it is evident that the possessor of realizations must practice the channels, winds, and vital essences through the practice of actual dhyana, namely fierce heat. So more specifically, the path of means, upaya marga, here, according to Chodra, is referring to the practice of channels, winds, and drops. And then more specifically, the practice of tummo, the fierce heat. It is the cause of all miraculous abilities that can soothe the suffering of beings because they see, hear, and remember the possessor of realization and produce the arising of an inseparable union of calm abiding and superior insight in their mental continuum. Moreover, this is so because the qualities, activities, 10 authorities, and so forth of emptiness, cause, and result arise through practicing the inconceivable means, which are summarized by the 10 perfections included in and so forth in the present Vajra statement, in an inseparable union with great discriminative knowledge. So what Choda here is saying is that even if you have a glimpse of nature of mind, which is a type of realization, you have to take advantage of these yogic practices, such as Tummo, inner heat, in order to powerfully burn the afflictive emotions that are habitually still there, and to produce what he calls like the inseparable union of calm abiding and insight. And this is because the qualities, activities, 10 authorities, these are the powers of the Buddha. And all these, he says, arises together with wisdom. So the qualities and wisdom, they arise as a result of burning all our afflictive emotions. So here the point too is to not become like easily satisfied. So therefore the next quote, Maitreya Natha says, for a supreme one of beings who carries the great load of sentient beings on his head, it is unseemly to proceed in a leisurely manner. So part of what this statement is addressing is it's addressing the way in which we can become too satisfied. Oh, I have some realization. You won't say some. You'll say, oh, I have realization. Now I just relax. Then this links us back to the point I was making earlier. Don't forget, we are swimming against the stream. We're not flowing together, right? The direction the stream is going. We are going against the stream. And if we are going to carry the load, the burden of all sentient beings, how can we just kind of, saunter around in a leisurely way? So then, moreover, the jewel letter says, until you have obtained concentrated meditative absorption, even if you realize true reality, so even if you have a glimpse of nature of mind, it will be without qualities. Therefore, fierce heat is to be practiced. This is from Pamodrupa. Even though you might have actualized the realization of Mahamudra, free from mental proliferation for your own benefit, for the arising of the measureless qualities and activities for the sake of others, it is necessary that you exert yourself in the 6 dharmas, such as fierce heat, the 10 perfections, and so forth. So here this commentary makes sure that we understand it is not just talking about these yogic practices, such as Tummo and so forth, but all the perfections. Not just the special tantric techniques, but the sutric practices, the perfections, the 10 perfections, the 6 perfections. So now here, this 18, right? It should not get you guys to go, oh, okay, where can I practice Tummo? Who is going to teach me Tummo? Can you teach me Tummo? First of all, no, I cannot teach you Tummo. I don't have enough experience of that. So that I can answer immediately. Then you're like, oh, you cannot? Okay, let me go online and see, who can. That's not the way. This is not the main point here. Because realistically, these practices of the winds, channels, drops, for most of us, we don't have the conditions to do it. But we have to learn, you know, to say, we have to learn to be able to say, yes, this is really good and important. And here it says we have to practice this. But to be also able to say, but right now, that's not where I can do the most good, so to say. That's not where I can grow the most. So I'm not going to think, oh, those things are not necessary. But neither am I going to be distracted by, oh, I need that, oh, I need that, oh, I need that. Oh, where can I find that? Oh, where can I get that? Because already we have so many things that we can work on right now. Then we work on that. Then we take the larger point being made by this statement, which is, even if we have achieved some kind of experience, some kind of realization, as the last part of this commentary says, for our own benefit, meaning we can see how good it is now that we have arrived at this particular stage of our practice. We feel good about things, we feel good. But don't forget, you know, for the sake of all beings, we have to keep polishing this jewel. Because in a way, right, for our own sake, we are already that jewel, with or without polishing. We're already that jewel. We're already that diamond, with or without polishing. Prior to this, we don't even know that we are this diamond. So maybe we have some realization, maybe you have some glimpse, and then we say, ah, I am this diamond, with or without polishing. So in a way, that gives you some good feeling, some assurance, everything will be fine. But you should not stop there. You should think. But in order for me, this jewel, this diamond, to be really useful to others, I have to polish. Then whatever kind of polishing you have access to now, you polish in that way. If it is practicing the 6 perfections, you practice the 6 perfections. If the opportunity comes for some training in Tummo, you train. If the opportunity comes for training in mindfulness of body, of breath, you train. You train whatever, and know that I am polishing this jewel, this diamond, in order for the arising, there's the commentary, for the arising of the measureless qualities and activities for the sake of others, it is necessary that you exert yourself. So Sobish here says, concerning that, some people claim that the purpose of the path of means is to achieve realization, some initial realization, and that this path is no longer necessary once realization is achieved. But Dorje Sherab uses the example of the path of means. So an example of this kind of understanding is a field which, when the farmer has brought in the harvest, has accomplished its purpose, and a boat that once one has crossed the river, it can be left behind. So these are actually examples that are found in Buddhist texts. For example, the example of the raft, right? Use the raft to cross this ocean of confusion. Once you arrive, you don't need the raft anymore. So there are statements like this. Yeah. So oftentimes, right, the opposing view that these statements, these Kyopas Vajra statements address, the opposing views, they're not like outright wrong. Right? In fact, they're often based on things that you can find in the sutras, in the tantras, in different of these authoritative places, but getting the right understanding of what these things are saying, that requires a more careful look and approach. So here, top of page 620, all our commentaries contrast this with the instruction that someone who has attained realization needs the path of means to produce the necessary qualities to guide sentient beings. In other words, do it for the sake of others. Still practice all those for the sake of others. Because those are related to the last statement. These practices are the causes that we have to create for the qualities to arise. So this is an elaboration on how is it, that the qualities will not arise if the causes are not there. What are the causes? The causes is us practicing all these different methods. Even if we have already glimpsed nature of mind, we should continue to practice. Not just, inahi tummo. We should continue to practice giving offerings, lighting lamps, doing charity, all those we should continue. So Dorshema says, the possessor of realization needs the qualities which are such that he can thereby pacify the mind of three poisons of whoever merely sees and hears him. And the samadhi of calm abiding and superior insight can arise in those people's mental continuum. To accomplish these qualities, first, one needs the supernormal powers. To accomplish all sorts of supernormal powers, one needs fierce heat. The quality that is the cause for the cultivation of fierce heat is actually dhyana practice, meaning meditative practice, stabilizing the mind entering the kind of meditative states that is unmoving. So here it says that is the quality that is necessary for cultivating tummo, fierce heat. And tummo will burn the obscurations, will purify the jewel so powerfully, so effectively, that then the jewel and its qualities can benefit others. And that's why Milarepa, he was very adept, he was very expert in tummo. And even after he achieved realization, he continued to practice tummo because he understood that in doing that, he had greater and greater ability to relate to those who need his help. There was one story I share with you. Our Holiness, Kyab Gongchik Rinpoche, when he started his 3-year retreat, now he's out of Tibet in exile and lived a few years in the US with his family, then making the decision, no, he needs to go back to Asia to revive the lineage. Then one of the first things he did after he went back to India is he went into this 3-year retreat program. And during this time, because he was physically weak, because of having been put in the work camps in Tibet before he left, so he was physically weak. And so the intensity of the 3-year retreat, at some point, his fellow retreatants felt bad for him and was really concerned that he physically could not do some of these more strenuous practices. So they went to the retreat master and wrote a request to the retreat master to, kind of give a shortcut to His Holiness. So his retreat master read the request and one day called everyone to the assembly, all the retreatants to come, because he said, I want to answer your request. So from what I've heard, the retreat master first asked His Holiness to sit on his throne. Then his master prostrated to His Holiness and then said to His Holiness and said, your fellow retreatants very kindly wrote this request to me to take into consideration the difficulties that you have experienced and to give you sort of like a discount, in the practice, because they're concerned about you. And then the retreat master said, now, we all know that you, Your Holiness, is the emanation of Chenrezig, of Avalokiteshvara. So on your end, for your side, for your own purpose, of course, you don't need to do these practices. I said, but at the same time, that we are together here, connected and doing practice, that I'm your retreat master in this lifetime, means that we both at some point made the Bodhisattva vow, the vow to benefit beings without limit. So for the sake of all beings, he said, I now beg you to do the practices the exact same way as everybody else in this retreat is doing. Do it for the sake of all beings. So then the retreat master left the room. Yeah. So no discount. When I've heard this story first, it was more the point of like, how tough. But here, the deeper is according to this statement, like you practice these practices because yourself, again, sometimes we, or at the beginning, we forget that we are the jewel that we are. And then, we gain confidence. So some kind of realization, oh, I am that jewel, right? And in that sense, for your own purpose, polish or not polish, you are already the jewel. So you can say, oh, that's fine. But the purpose of discovering that you're that jewel is not just that you are that jewel, but that that jewel can benefit others. And therefore, why polish? Because it is for others. It's for the sake of others. Then do it. That's 618. Any questions or comments? We always say, for the sake of others, for the benefit of others. Sometimes that kind of disappears, Sometimes that gets lost, somewhere in all the complexity and all the here, this, that, This is a good way to help us frame, you know, like when we say benefiting others, what do we mean, you know?
I've, thought about that a lot, and you have said in the past that it's impossible to have all beings become Buddha. I mean, it's the Buddha didn't influence everybody to become Buddha. So I still am not sure what that means and what we are aspiring to do. Are we
What means?
For the benefit of others? Is it for the benefit when we say all beings?
Yeah.
All beings we come in contact with, and it's a process whereby over time, as we gain more from the practice, we're
Doing
able.
the impossible is the bodhisattva vow.
I'm sorry, say that.
Doing the impossible is the bodhisattva vow.
I've heard you say that.
Yes.
And I can certainly believe that.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's the conflict, and I suppose it's the creative conflict.
Not conflict.
Or tension.
Uh-huh.
Better word, tension.
And what is the tension? Can you articulate that? Just so that we're sure that...
It's impossible, but we strive to do it.
Yes. And why is it impossible? More important to understand that. Why is it impossible?
Well, we don't have the power to take away someone else's suffering. We can see it in different ways.
But we can help people to have a break from suffering.
By our activities with them, our interactions with them.
And within the power that we have.
Right. So
Milarepa can probably, if he was here, give you a break from your toothache if that toothache is really bad. He probably can. Your dentist probably can. So that's relieving suffering, right? So when we say that Buddhas cannot make you Buddhas, we're saying Buddhas cannot make you Buddhas. But Buddhas can do a lot more than I can for you, right? If you met a Buddha.
But the Buddha
cannot make you a Buddha.
Cannot make things go away for people the Buddha does not come in contact with. And
or rather, people don't come in contact with the Buddha.
I'm sorry, what?
People don't come in contact with Buddhas. Not Buddhas don't come in contact with people.
Right, okay. I see the difference.
Yes. Yeah, so Buddhas are doing a lot. And then Buddhas -1 is also doing a lot. -1, then -2, -3, and then minus, 4 bazillion, is what I can do, to help, to benefit. Yeah, so in a sense, when we say there is a tension, it's an abstract, it's a theoretical tension. Actually, it's quite straightforward, You develop the skills. I mean, forget about thinking about magical powers. You develop the skill to help others. Do you need to study, for example? Let's put it in a very concrete way. Do you need to study, the 16 types of emptinesses? Maybe for your own reason, no. But if you have that explanation of the 16 aspects of emptiness, and if you have it at your disposal, and when you're talking to someone who is ripe to hear some of these things, the fact that you know these 16, you can know, 2, 7, and 14 will be good for this person now. I'm going to use it. For that reason, you know the 16 aspects of emptiness. Yeah, that's a power that you have acquired. If this person, go la 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 la, when you're explaining the 2, the 7, and the 14, yeah, of course, nothing you can do there. Now, if you have the power of not only knowing the 16 emptinesses and knowing that right now he's ripe, but then there's an obstacle, he's going, right? If you have a further power that can cause him to put his fingers down, that's even better. And you have the power of the ability to get him to pay attention to what you're saying. Oh, that's even better. See, those things it says here comes from having cultivated all these different practices. So in a way, like practicing Dambala, practicing Medicine Buddha, practicing Tara, on one level, I can tell you, oh my God, it's just like a buffet, like you go into this buffet, you're like, what do I eat today? And then you never leave a buffet satisfied because, you're like, I missed out on so many other things that I could eat. So I get it, but at the same point, at the same time, don't forget, there is a purpose why the Jambala practice the Buddha taught, why Medicine Buddha, why Tara, why all of this. Just because now, right, we should not become so distracted. So on the other hand, you could go into a buffet where you want one of everything. Then you also you come out. That's, again, also not skillful. But the skillful one is to recognize, when I practice Jambala, see, I could practice Jambala for because I want my business to go well, It's all those that worldly things. But if you practice Jambala and go, in this way, I can develop the qualities of wealth that is necessary to attract other beings. We're not talking about just financial wealth, material wealth, but wealthiness as a state of mind is attractive. Poverty as a state of mind is not attractive. So some Dharma practitioners, they know all the teachings very clearly, but they don't have you could say they don't have the ability, circumstance, power, conditions to attract students. So then they cannot benefit. So forget about talking about Buddhas, like they're like, so they're here on this level. Yeah. Yeah, I know some of these individuals, like no question in my mind, how clear their understanding, how clear, how sincere, how authentic their practice. But you can see, they don't connect well with sentient beings. It's probably because the polishing, not enough. Then on the other hand, of course, you have those who are sitting around all day planning tricks, how to attract students. Forget about those. Let's not talk about those, because that's already insincere, all of that. The opposite of like the first case, like practitioners who are really clear, their understanding, and they are sincere, their practice is pure and everything, and yet they don't have, they're not, the students who come to them also don't kind of blossom. Then on the other hand to that is there are teachers who have both, they're really sincere, they really have understanding, clear understanding, have realization, all of that. And also, right, they can really cause the students who come to them to blossom. It's because they have these qualities. In Buddha's life, many examples of like both are arhats. That means they have realized, this realization of selflessness, But one arhat, can barely get enough food offerings. Another arhat, non-stop people would offer. So then the other arhat will come and hang out with this arhat because this arhat gets so much offerings. People just naturally like him. And this has to do with earlier on the path, the arhat with the abundant offerings, practice Jambala. But not practicing it for, so that when I become enlightened, I could have really good food and really good offerings. No, but people will be attracted to me that I can then, work with them. Yeah. "19. The prevailing view. People claim that on the charnel grounds, one enjoys the various special observances of awareness in the attire of the yogis in the face of the enhancement of realization." And so this is like something that we come across in the Tantras. It says, at a certain point in very advanced practice, when you have, a certain level of realization, then you should go out into the charnel grounds and dress, like the attire of the charnel ground yogis and engage in this kind of sometimes called unhindered behavior. But do it all as a way to train your awareness. So even if you're drinking alcohol, even if you're having sexual relations, your awareness is all clear and present. So in theory, right, there are descriptions like that in the Tantra. And so then there are people who think, oh, this is what we should do. Surprise, surprise, Kyopa Rinpoche has a different. He says, having the highest regard for disciplined conduct. Principally here, he's talking to his monks, meaning observing your monastic vows, is the specially distinguished conduct of awareness. So he says, no, don't go out to charnel grounds or go out to the brothel or go to the red light district. That is the dressing in yogi these days, right? Going there and say, oh, I'm practicing enhanced awareness by deliberately putting myself in these conditions where all sorts of temptations are there. He says, no. The real way of doing this is, having the highest regard for disciplined conduct, is the specially distinguished conduct of awareness. Okay, so Chodra, to engage in the power of gnosis after taming the grasping of the characteristics of afflictions and conceptions is called the conduct that engages in the special observance of awareness. This conduct of increasingly advancing through the realizations arising from the four yogas of Mahamudra of this lineage depends on disciplined conduct and is the removal of the subtle veils that continue to exist up to the 10th stage. Moreover, since shameless nonsense babbling, coarse conduct is easy, but the training in rejecting what is improper and accepting what is proper is difficult, disciplined conduct is especially distinguished. Yeah, so he's saying, you know, like the so-called unhindered behavior, I would say, you know, for most of us, you know, it's so easy, you know. So you should not say, oh, now I'm going to do unhindered. Right now, you're already unhindered for the most part. Especially us, you know, like we live in societies where nobody really cares what you do. As long as, you know, you don't bug them, you can do whatever heck you want, right? We say, you know, hey, it's my private business, you know. Then I said, you know, one of the great things about social media is that no scandal remains long. Don't worry, you know. No, actually, I'm just kidding, you know. But it feels like, you know, don't worry, you know, whatever scandal, right, that you have, right, that is exposed, don't kill yourself, really. This is silly, you know, because people will only remember for 3 days because there's some other scandal for them to focus on. Really, after 3 days, if you keep quiet for 3 days, you know, it might be really torturous, you know. So this is good advice, even though generally don't take this advice. Generally, disciplined conduct, right? But if whatever shameful things, you know, of yours that is exposed, you know, on social media or whatever, please don't kill yourself. Please don't do anything stupid like that. Because these days, it will only last for 3 days, you know. Then people move on because they have some other scandal. But here it's saying, those are so easy, the so-called unhindered. So how can you sharpen your awareness? By doing the so-called unhindered, unencumbered behavior. Instead, the real training is rejecting what is improper, accepting what is proper. That is difficult. And because that is difficult, right, then it can help us really sharpen our awareness. Since Indian Acharya Nagarjuna and others, and the Tibetan Lord Gampopa and others also practiced this disciplined conduct of awareness, the activities were more widespread. Here, you know, Chodra, he's quite aware that there were others, right, great masters that did not conduct themselves in this style. So he gave 2 specific examples. He says, in India, the example of Nagarjuna, and in Tibet, the example of Gampopa. He says, these 2, you know, because the way they sharpen their awareness is to do it within the boundaries of keeping their monastic vows and their monastic training very pure, very sincere. He says, look at the effect of their activities. Look at how many more beings that they were able to influence. In other words, right, I mean, he did not say it explicitly, but what he is implying here is that, yes, there are other Mahasiddhas like Tilopa, right, which is an important lineage masters for us in India, right? There are some of these Mahasiddhas like Kukuripa, right? The one that hung out with all these dogs, right? But he's saying implicitly here, he's saying they didn't have the kind of effect that Nagarjuna had in terms of how widely Nagarjuna's influence. And likewise, so now in Tibet, he says Lord Gampopa. He is implicitly implying, right? Milarepa is more the unhindered way, unencumbered way. But you see, Milarepa's extent of Milarepa, not as great as Gampopa. Extent of Marpa. In a way, you can say Marpa is a real kind of contribution, is Milarepa turn up. And Milarepa's real contribution is Gampopa turned up. And Gampopa is the one, in a way you can say, that made Milarepa and Marpa great because of Gampopa's achievements. Elsewhere, Kyoba Rinpoche said, right? If you want to know how great a teacher is, look at the students. I chance upon Kim's comments on Facebook about Lama Kelsang. And that's exactly this point. Kim said, to see Lama Kelsang during the retreat, and I will use my words, the equipoise that he was in. And for those who know Lama Kelsang's teacher, Nupa Rinpoche, instantly you see the resemblance. It's a very stable, unmoving, and yet humble and quiet presence. So by looking at Lama Kelsang, you can say, oh, his teacher, Nupa Rinpoche, is really great. This is Nupa Rinpoche's influence, Nupa Rinpoche's blessings. So you look at the student, you will know how great the teacher is. No greater compliment to the teacher than when the student can show the qualities, or other people can see the qualities. So in the same way, Gampopa. Concerning the Vajra holder, the differentiation is like this. The fully ordained monk is the highest. The novice, the medium, and the householder is the lowest. So here, Chodrat says, as for a Vajra master, someone who functions, right, as a guide to others, the best one you can find is a fully ordained monk. And I would say none, of course. The point is, the most vows that they carry, then they have the most qualities. Not automatically, we're not saying that. We are saying all things being the same, right? If they all have, say, equal realization, still the one who is a fully ordained monk will have the greatest qualities and impact. Then the novice monk or nun will have the medium, and then the householder will have the lowest. Remembering also, like Kyoba Rinpoche, in his own life, when he was with Pamodrupa, he wasn't a monk. So here we are talking about not so much their own realization, but their ability to benefit. The extent of their benefit is greater, according to this, if they hold purely the full monk's vows. So Lord Drikungpa said, I, the one who possesses realization, matching that of the 80 Mahasiddhas of India, now appear as a renunciate. In this, I am very reckless. I'm very unencumbered. This is like an ironic way of stating. He says, I have realization that matches, all the Mahasiddhas in India. But instead of like the typical Mahasiddha behavior, I'm now, manifesting that of a fully renunciate. So only later in Kyoba Rinpoche's life, he took the monk's vows because he finally understood that by having the fool's monk's vows, then he has created the auspicious conditions necessary to really benefit more. Thus, however vast one's experience and realization, to practice the conduct of awareness in conjunction with disciplined conduct is to practice the pure teachings. Nowadays, however, some people wear the bone ornaments that they pass off as an element of their special observance, wrap themselves in dog pelts, and brandish weapons. Their conduct is that of a realized one who disregards cause and the result and treats body and life carelessly while misbehaving in a way that disturbs gods and nagas. They are filling the valley with the sound pet and meaningless cries, the meaningless pretense of special observance of roaming around like a dog. Disciplined conduct is much more distinguished than that. So he's saying, like there are these people these days, dressed up like the way Mahasiddhas are painted, depicted of ancient India. So then they think, oh, I will wear this special thing, earrings and bones and, holding this implement and run around like crazy to show that I have, gone beyond all concepts. He says, this is really not helpful. So in our modern times, you still have these things, people who get very caught up in the exotic parts of Tibetan Buddhism. Of the different types of Buddhism, I think the Tibetan one is the most exotic. Therefore, it also attracts the most crazy people. People who really like, do this, do that, and especially I will say, like this whole business about I'm a Ngakpa and this and that, and Ngakpas do this and do that. They control the weather. They do this, they do that. They predict the future. They can do, divination, this and that, and all of that, Very exciting. Very colorful. But that's easy, It's easy to indulge your fantasies. It's hard to swim against the stream. Sobish, unpacks this further. Yeah, so 624, where he says, although it is not explicitly stated, this appears to imply that the masters like Marpa had only a few disciples because their special observance were, quote unquote, wild. As prime examples of masters who came to vastly benefit the teachings, thanks to their especially distinguished disciplined conduct, the commentaries mention Nagarjuna, Atisha, Gampopa, Pamodrupa, and Jigten Sungpa. And I would add Buddha Shakyamuni. Yeah? He was the #1 model of disciplined conduct. Look at what we have today, Buddhism. Yes, Guru Rinpoche is great. I have a lot of myself kind of kind of almost cannot explain why, like heart devotion to Guru Rinpoche. The first time I went to Tibet, I really felt very strong presence of Guru Rinpoche. Yes, I can tell you that. But, Buddha Shakyamuni's extent in my mind, greater. Of course, don't tell this to others, on Nyingma bus will say, oh, how can you? But really, Buddha Shakyamuni. So one example in the Rinjangma, let's read this on page 624. Rinzhen Changchuk mentions Atisha's dream. Since the great Atisha was a great mantra yogi, he considered entering the yogic conduct. So it's not totally wrong, because there are teachings that say, at a certain point, you should do this unhindered, unencumbered practice. So here called yogic conduct. So even Atisha himself at one point considered, maybe I should do this now. At that time, he dreamed that in a great temple containing a great many scriptures, there was none he did not know. But then on top of all these Dharma books, he discovered 2 white volumes he did not know. He asked the caretaker, who said, these books that you do not know are the books of the noble Vinaya. Noble Vinaya is the monk's training. Unquote. He woke up and, thinking that he must take ordination, entered the gate of the Vinaya and practiced with the highest esteem for disciplined conduct. So this must be before Atisha became a monk, actually. Before that, he was already training. The Rinjangma furthermore states that Gampopa maintained that, quote, this benefiting of beings arose from the Kadam tradition that sprang from Atisha. So Gampopa actually said, like his ability to benefit beings, this is the blessing that comes from his Kadampa training. From his training with Milarepa, even though he was practicing Mahamudra even from Atisha's tradition, but it was his training with Milarepa that resulted in Gampopa achieving enlightenment. But nonetheless, Gampopa maintained that this benefiting of beings arose from the Kadam tradition for him. His ability to have such a big impact, he says, is because of the blessings of the Kadam lineage, the Kadampa lineage of Atisha. Likewise, since Pamadrupa valued disciplined conduct like the apple of his eye, vast activities arose. Even though he was like a siddha and the possessor of realization, everybody could clearly see that he was the crown jewel among all whose inner disciplined conduct was to practice awareness conduct. Therefore, from the point of view of attaining realization onward, it is particularly important to hold disciplined conduct in the highest esteem. So the Kalachakra Tantra says, the supreme receptacle for the practice of mantra is the fully ordained monk, the medium one is the novice, and the lowest is the lay practitioner. We know from Jidin Sungwen's life, when he was with Pamodrupa, Pamodrupa actually kept pressing him. Hey, become a monk. Hey, become a monk. And he said no. He said no. He said no. He kept resisting. It was only after Pamodrupa passed away. So I give you this example to say, yes, don't at the same time think, like to practice the Dharma is to simply do whatever you are told. Not necessarily. See, Jiten Simgon also, said no to Pamodrupa. Even Pamodrupa said, you should become a monk. You should become a monk. But Jiten Simgon said, no. Respectfully. Respectfully. But he said no. So yes, teacher and student, you can have different opinion. But you do not dismiss your teacher's advice as either he doesn't know or he has ulterior motives. If you feel that way about that advice, then maybe this is not the right teacher for you. I'm not saying, that if you feel that way, you are wrong. But maybe this is not the right teacher. But if it is the right teacher, you relate to his or her advice and say, okay, this is given in sincerity. This is given in a way that I'm sure is helpful. But at the same time, from Jiten Sumgön's example, you can see how you can at the same time also say, but I can't do it right now. For whatever reason, right? I can't do it right now. But you take to heart that advice. So sincerity is also important. You cannot say, oh yeah, I'll do it. But actually, you might go through the motions of doing it, but you are not convinced inside. Then also not much use. So years later, when Jiten Simgon sees more clearly, oh yes, really, I should take the monk's vows, then even greater appreciation and devotion to his teacher. It's like, yeah, he is right. But these moments of he is right? I don't think you can force it. I don't think you can pretend. And I think too often people pretend, people force, then they never really learn the powerful realizations that can arise. So learn how to hold these two together. Take what the teacher says to heart and do it if you can. If you cannot do it, don't find excuses to dismiss what the teacher has advised, but also don't blindly just do it because the teacher says so. Keep it in heart and keep observing, keep learning, keep observing, keep learning. Then one day you will go, oh, right, then it's really meaningful. Then it's not forced. Yeah? Get it? Choki Drakpa quotes Jigten Sumgön. I, the one who possesses realization matching that of the 80 Mahasiddhas of India, now appear as a renunciate. In this, I am very reckless, unquote. This is, of course, paradoxical speech. Here, to be very reckless means that he takes excessive care to follow the rules of disciplined conduct. This resembles another expression by Jigten Sumgön, which the Dorshema quotes, I am drunk with the alcohol of great bliss. Please do not scold me blindly for blethering drunken words, unquote. Here, to be drunk with alcohol and blethering drunken words means that the winds have been brought under control through much practice and made to enter the central channel whereby bliss arose, finding its expression, for example, in Jigten Sumgön's spiritual songs, what he calls blethering words. However, as Choki Drakpa so bluntly states, people are usually stupid enough to believe that a mere presence of such yogic states manifested through crazy behavior is profound. He says people are usually stupid enough to believe this. So if you want to waste time on Facebook, then keep an eye open for, these kinds of things, People who are stupid enough to take the mere presence of these displays as wow. These crazy behavior as profound. So today we will stop here. There's one more statement, 620, we can look at on Monday. I think there's something missing yeah, it's okay. We can talk next time. Yeah, this name Bushuku, which most famously is associated with Shantideva, said to be a contraction of eating, which is bhukta in Sanskrit, then sleeping, shushta, and kutara, defecating. But there's some disagreement whether the ku is defecating or walking around. Of course, the more the funnier one is defecating. So this is like apparently Shantideva's nickname in Nalanda was Bushuku, and his fellow students call him that because in their opinion he was very lazy, because he is only seen all the time eating, sleeping, and defecating. So they said that's all he does, So of course it turns out he was a great practitioner that practiced secretly, so they didn't see his practice. So he's called Bushuku. But in this context, we can look at this. Actually, Bushuku also gained a different meaning, which is that other than doing these three activities that your biological body requires, eating, sleeping, and defecating, other than doing these three, your whole life is dedicated to Dharma practice. Yeah, so actually Bushuku means someone who is very dedicated to Dharma practice. It means like other than doing the bare necessity to maintain this body, which is eating, and what you take in has to go out, defecating, and sleep, resting. Other than these three, everything you do should be dedicated to Dharma. So in that statement, it says, but if you are very dedicated to Dharma, but if you don't have what's called the three Dharmas, then your practice can just be for your own sake, like that of the Shravakas and the Prachekas Buddhists, only seeking your own comfort, your own peace. That's the meaning of that statement. The meaning of that statement is unclear if you have the original definition of Bushuku, which is a term of insult, saying, all you do is eat, sleep, and defecate, you useless guy. If you take this original meaning, the insult that Shantideva's friends gave him, then this statement don't have any meaning. Statement 20 only has meaning if you understand that actually the Bushuku term eventually evolved into the term for someone who do not do anything else in samsara that is unnecessary. So 101% practicing Dharma, and in terms of worldly things, he only has time for eating, sleeping, and defecating. 청주 샘초 rinpoche 마게 바남 게규지 게바냠 바메바야 공내 공두 벨월쇼. So you'll have a good weekend. I might see some of you, I think, at this weekend retreat that I'm doing with the Tibet House in Mexico City. Of course, it's a virtual retreat that starts this evening and goes through this weekend. But otherwise, I will see the rest of you Monday morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.